What's up, folks? It's MJ here with Alex Storm, and we're getting ready to talk Run All Night. So as always, it's a spoiler discussion. If you haven't seen the movie, go check it out. Come back, check out our video. So, Alex, what did you think of Run All Night?
I thought Run All Night was entertaining. It reminded me of a good 90s action movie. And I think it's kind of cool that our action star of 2015 is in his 60s.
Yeah, that is pretty cool. I mean, I was looking at what Liam Neeson has been doing the past year or so. He's come out with like approximately 5 or 6 action movies.
Wow.
Taken 3 just came out this past January. This one comes out in March. Walking on the Tombstones came out last September. So pretty much about every 3 months or so, he's dropping an action movie. And they've all been doing pretty well. So there's a reason that they keep casting him in this stuff. And he just does such a good job of being this grizzled old badass guy. You know, it really is crazy to think, because the thing about him to me that's really interesting is that he wasn't always an action actor. In fact, I would say he wasn't thought of as an action star at all for the vast majority of his career. So it's really weird to think that when the guy gets in his late 50s and 60s that he has become this dude who's just kicking everyone's ass.
Found his niche.
There you go.
he grew into the grizzled old action star that he is.
Exactly. So he went from character actor to action star. So what's the director's name? Jaume Collet Serra, I believe is how you pronounce it.
Collet Serra.
So this guy directed Nonstop, which came out last year, and he also directed Liam Neeson in Unknown. I did not have the pleasure of seeing either one of those movies, but I know he started off doing horror films like House of Wax. And particularly the beginning of the movie, I was a little thrown off by some of the direction. I thought it was a little over stylized. Like in particular, there were these edits and cuts where like the camera would zoom into something and it would zoom out, and it wouldn't be a cut at all. It would like pan and go to a whole different location in the same city, and you would see it fly over the whole city. And I was just like, okay, that's cool. I'm glad you guys have this nice budget and everything. Is this necessary? And it was a little distracting, so I was concerned in the very beginning.
I agree with you. You know what it reminded me of? Because we've been on this kick of watching 90s action movies for the past couple months. And so I think that was what immediately made me think of 90s action movies, because there were these cityscape scenes, you know? But yeah, it looked a little overdone with the CGI zoom out, zoom in on alleyways and trash cans, and yeah, it was unnecessary.
Yeah.
But by halfway through the movie, I wasn't thinking about it. I felt like all the action was really good.
Yeah.
And I felt like it looked, for him being as old as he is, it looked realistic for him to be fighting these other thug dudes throughout the movie.
Yeah, I mean, I think Liam Neeson's physicality is just impressive. And, you know, so his son, you know, the storyline obviously is that he's trying to protect his son. So his son is played by Joel Kinnaman, which I guess at this point his biggest role was RoboCop last year. And they started off showing him teaching kids how to box. They actually started off showing him boxing. So I'm expecting at some point that this guy is going to get to show his skills and get into a boxing match and beat up somebody. Yeah. But he doesn't do it. And he's not like an imposing figure in the sense that he's like muscular, but he's a very tall man. Like Liam Neeson is very tall, and he's like appears to be taller or the same height as him. So like they did a good job with that as far as casting the relationship. But he didn't do really anything physically.
He had no action whatsoever.
Yeah, and so
and he never got shot.
Yeah, right.
Amazing. He has the ability to not get shot.
Yeah, that was his special power. Actually, he could pretty much walk away from any situation unscathed, including the car crash. And speaking of the car crash, like that was, I mean, the action sequences were really good. I think there were some really standout moments, which is, surprising because it is such a like straightforward crime film. But to me, the least well executed action sequence was the car chase, and it seemed like the director was going for something a little different there than what you normally see. Like it was really shot really closely, and the camera was shaky, and it was like really chaotic and frenetic, but I still didn't feel like they really did a good job of just, I don't know, it just wasn't as exhilarating or as fun as, I wish something, a car chase would be. So that was the one disappointment, but the hand-to-hand stuff and the shooting was top-notch. And, this, again, I keep saying this, a rated R movie for adults where it is better because it is rated R. The violence in this film, the profanity, the language, all that stuff, if you tried to scale this down and make it family friendly or make it something that more people could see, it wouldn't work. And I like the idea that this movie skews older anyway. So they're like,
yeah, this is not a movie for 16-year-olds.
Yeah, your 16-year-old little cousin's not going to go see this movie anyway. So let's make this movie for older people who actually will enjoy it. So yeah, I mean, it worked out pretty well.
Can you talk for a minute about the mob boss?
Ed Harris?
Yeah.
Yeah.
His enemy, because I really liked him in it.
Yeah, yeah. So Ed Harris's performance in this movie was really good. And I mean, look, all the characters in this movie are basically cliches, right? We've seen all these types of characters before. I was thinking like the storyline of the movie John Wick is almost the exact same story as this movie. Like it's a crime boss with a spoiled son, which we've seen in every movie with the crime boss with a son, who's a disappointment. He does something stupid, he ends up getting killed, or he ends up having to be protected.
Dad in trouble.
Yeah, exactly. You know, so that happens here, and then Ed Harris is forced to take down his buddy. So his performance was great. I felt like he sort of projected this toughness, but at the same time almost this like charm. Like it was this weird like he almost was like a fatherly figure in a way.
He was likable. And he was a good friend. I think maybe that's what made him so likable before he was like as a crime boss. Is he was also a good friend to Ed Harris. And that, like
to Liam Neeson?
Or to Liam Neeson. Sorry, Ed Harris was a good friend to Liam Neeson. And the moment where they're like sitting in his bedroom after that whole first mess of him being drunk and stupid, which we can talk about in a minute, when they were having this conversation, he came off as a very real person. He wasn't just this evil villain in the movie.
Yeah, and I think that's, I mean, for as cliche as so many other aspects of the film were, that was the one aspect that they did a good job of sort of adding something different than what you expected. And that he did seem like he was a real person, a guy who, he says he's been doing this for like 30 some odd years. And it's like, yeah, well, he's a level-headed guy who doesn't just jump into things and isn't some just like comic book or cartoon character, evil, ha ha ha,
not evil for the sake of being evil.
Yeah, exactly. But at the same time, that's actually something that troubled me with the way the story went, because these guys are like lifelong buddies, basically. And Liam Neeson's character is like, hey, so please don't kill my son, dude. He even said, you can take me. And he's just so adamant about like, no, I'm going to kill your son. I'm going to make you suffer. And it's like, dude, like, your son is a screw up. Your son caused all this.
You didn't even like your son. You thought you were going to kill your son at the beginning.
They set the thing up by, he's like, you got to get yourself out of your own mess. And he clearly knows that these Romanian dudes are going to kill his son. And then they go to kill his son in the next scene. So it's like, if they would have succeeded, his son would have still been dead that night, and it would have been his fault. But now, because your son proceeds to try to kill somebody else's kid, and he gets killed, now you got to take him out.
But they needed something to drive the plot.
Yeah.
And I have to say that at least with this, I was glad that it wasn't like the female driving the plot, that there wasn't a female plot device. Like he was protecting his family, but it wasn't that,
protecting his wife or daughter or something like that.
His like daughter got kidnapped or his wife got kidnapped.
That's the reason.
There was a little bit of a difference here.
He's like, well, I already did that and taken a few times, so now my son has to be the one I protect. We got the women covered. So, I guess we could talk a few smaller roles. Well, Common shows up as the Terminator, also known as Price in this movie.
Yeah.
He didn't really speak a lot. Now, again, I don't hate on Common's acting ability. I think the guy's solid, but certainly, I mean, he tends to have been in smaller roles for the most part. So this is pretty different for him. I can't really recall a time that he's been like a straight up like action role. And he did a really good job. It was just quiet, and just menacing and scary character as well. It was also still pretty cliche. There were some funny things with him with his night vision eye thing, where he's running around in the dark. After he gets past a group of people, then he just takes it off for some reason when it's like smoky and dark.
Liam Neeson. He's like, oh, there he is. I don't need this anymore.
Yeah, and so it also like they show him, shooting every time he pulls the trigger with this red laser sight. He's taking people out, man. They're dropping left and right. But when he's shooting at the main characters, he can't hit them.
It's multiple times.
So I mean, again.
And it's actually almost the same thing with Liam Neeson too, because he shot at multiple people in the movie, and he always hit him. But then when he was shooting at Price, he couldn't hit him.
They
until
just,
the very end.
Yeah, they had blinders on, I guess. I don't know. Also, Liam Neeson, he's using a 6-shooter and was effectively eliminating rooms of men. But
I never saw him make a mistake with it. I never saw him where he didn't stop and reload when he should have reloaded. But it just didn't seem like the most effective weapon for a killer of his caliber.
I mean, also consider that everyone else was using semi-automatics and automatic weapons. It was a little surprising that he was so effective with this.
His son, the gun that his son was carrying, was a much more high-quality gun, and he never switched him guns. He never traded. So wait, give me that. I'll use it instead.
And so I guess there was one troubling role for me in the movie, and that was the son's wife. They introduce her as pregnant and sitting around working on a collage of the family. And then, they seem to be, essentially, the first scene, you see them, they're arguing about something. Like, she's dissatisfied with something he's doing, and then that seems to be the ongoing thing. I didn't think that it was necessary to have the female character be that way. And as always, like, you know, they dumped this female character into the story to also just create an extra level of, you know, damsel in distress or peril, or the kids and my wife, they're in danger, I have to protect them. When I wish she could have been, she didn't have to be more fleshed out, because there were obviously plenty of male characters that weren't fleshed out as well. But it just seemed odd that the only really screen time they devoted to their relationship was her being like, why are you screwing up? Like, why are you not spending time with the family? And just sort of being a bit of a nag, you know?
Yeah, I could see your point in that. I felt like they redeemed themselves a little bit at the end when things were good, and she showed herself a little more positively by inviting his dad in.
Yeah.
So that was a good moment that they needed her to be a little more empathetic of a character.
Yeah.
But yeah, I didn't notice that as being as troubling as how Liam Neeson was portrayed at the very beginning of the movie.
Yeah.
Because at the very beginning of the movie, when he's so drunk and so pathetic, I was just like, oh, I'm not going to watch this sad old man for an hour and a half. And then he completely turned around.
Yeah.
So I think they could have not gone as far
Yeah.
with how pathetic of a character he was, and it still would have served the purpose. We still would have felt sorry for him for being mentally distraught over all the people he killed, but he didn't need to be so drunk and so sad and
dressing
such
up as
an
Santa
asshole.
Claus. Yeah. I mean, I agree. I think that was not only unnecessary from a character standpoint, but also it just kind of seemed like a flaw in the movie, because he then, like, when the action starts and the main plot line starts going, like, I thought, okay, maybe he's going to mess up. Maybe he, you know, because it's like, to me, I took away from it that the guy has been sort of in a drug and alcohol-induced haze for years. He's depressed. He hates his life, so this is kind of what he does. Which would mean, even though he is a trained killer, that if something like this happened on this particular day, because the entire story takes place over the course of 16 hours, that he wouldn't be able to just snap out of that he would still be a little off his game, you know. But it was like, no, I mean, as soon as it started going down, he was just boom, pulled the trigger one time, we shot again, like, it was just out of control. So, yeah, I mean, that was, I was concerned in the beginning too, but the whole thing turned itself around. So,
and all the father-son tension, I actually felt like added to the movie. At the one point where he went and visited the uncle, that was too much. But I liked that whole beginning setup where the son was like, no, I don't need you, like, you're out of my life, and there was this sadness between them, and I felt like that added to it, especially once they actually were okay. But I liked that they never completely repaired their relationship either. You know, it didn't make it like, oh, everything's better now that you saved my life. It's like, things are still not okay, but, you know, we were able to make it through the night.
I don't know, man. I thought the son might have been pushing ungrateful at a certain point. But it's like, dude, okay, like, you are the reason I made it through the night. And it's not like it was the dad's fault that these things were happening. Like, if the dad was in a whole different state, all the bad things that happened to him that night would have still happened, because
and he would have died.
Exactly, because it was just chance that this whole thing started. It wasn't like, you know, his dad screwed something up and people started coming after him. So, I mean, it's like, it's almost like, oh, thanks, Dad. Thank goodness you know how to kill people, you know, because so I can still survive.
Yeah, but I still didn't think that tension took away from the movie. I felt like it added another element, another layer to these characters.
Yeah, and I think that's...
And again, made Liam Neeson's character not seem nearly as bad.
Crappy, yeah. Well, you know, at the end of the day, let's face it, Liam Neeson is the grandfather that we all wish we had, right? Okay, any more comments on it?
I think that's it.
I'm going to do a quick shout out to the flaming table.
The flaming sticks, yes, the flaming table.
Which is pretty badass. So I just, got to put that out there. I really like that scene. That was something different. It was pretty cool. And even, you know, slamming Price's face into the burning wall and burning his face. He's just like, whatever, you know, I'm good. And, like, that was kind of cool. So
that was pretty cool.
All right, so that's it?
That's it.
All right, folks, so that will conclude our spoiler discussion of Run All Night. As always, you can follow me at The Only MJ, and you can follow her
at Alex Storm TMT, as in The Modern Truth, on Twitter.
Exactly. And so, for all your movie news, your world news, and any other commentary you need, be sure to check out themoderntruth.com. Until next time, folks, thanks.